When CEO Marcus Green goes undercover as a janitor, he uncovers shocking truths about his own company culture and employees, truths that leave him speechless. This story follows Marcus Green, a successful CEO with a secret mission. When troubling signs of employee dissatisfaction start to surface, he makes the bold decision to go undercover as a janitor in his own company. What he uncovers will not only challenge his leadership, but lead to a transformation that shakes the company to its core. If you're ready to hear what Marcus finds out and the changes he brings about, make sure to subscribe. And let me know what you think about this daring move. If you want to see more stories like this, comment 1 below. If you're excited to hear the full story, comment 2. Bookmark. Marcus Green, the CEO of Titan Innovations, stood by the wide windows of his spacious office, gazing at the sprawling cityscape beneath him. At 42, he had reached what many would consider the peak of success. Titan Innovations was one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, and Marcus, once a small-town kid, had transformed it into a tech powerhouse shaping industries with AI and advanced software solutions. He adjusted the sleeve of his custom-fitted suit, a symbol of the prestige he had earned through years of dedication. Titan Innovations had just wrapped up another profitable quarter, hitting record numbers and pushing the company's growth to new heights. But as Marcus stood there, a feeling of unease crept over him. For weeks now, he had sensed something troubling below the surface of all this success. It was a gnawing feeling that the company's culture, the very backbone of Titan Innovations, had somehow gone astray. The phone on his desk buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Green," his assistant's voice came through the speaker. "Jessica and Ethan are here for your 10 o'clock meeting." Marcus sighed, brushing off the creeping doubts as he turned toward the door. "Send them in, please." A moment later, Jessica Chu, head of human resources, and Ethan Williams, the chief operating officer, entered. Both wore the kinds of expressions that mirrored Marcus's own concerns. The company's recent employee satisfaction survey was at the forefront of today's agenda, and he knew it wasn't going to be a pleasant discussion. "Thanks for coming," Marcus greeted them, gesturing for them to sit at the polished conference table. The worry was evident on his face. "I'm guessing we all have a good idea of what we're dealing with here." Jessica nodded, her usual warmth replaced with a serious, focused demeanor. "Yes, the survey results have some concerning trends. Employee satisfaction is down 15% from last year, with significant drops in areas like work-life balance, feeling appreciated, and trust in management." Marcus leaned back, his brow furrowing. "What about the open-ended feedback? Are we seeing any recurring issues?" Jessica hesitated, exchanging a quick glance with Ethan before speaking. "There's a lot about a toxic culture. Employees feel overworked and undervalued, and some even mentioned favoritism in promotions and project assignments." Ethan chimed in, his tone cautious. "Marcus, we have to remember that Titan has been scaling at a breakneck pace. Some of this could just be growing pains." But Marcus held up a hand, not ready to dismiss the concerns. "I hear you, Ethan, but this is more than just a few complaints. We're talking about trust in leadership, feeling valued. These are serious issues." Jessica looked at him thoughtfully. "What do you think we should do? We could roll out some team-building exercises or expand the benefits package." Marcus shook his head, dismissing the suggestion. "No, I think it's deeper than that. We're missing something, and I don't think it's the kind of issue we can fix from up here in the executive suite." He paused, an idea forming. "You both know the phrase, you don't really know a company until you've walked a mile in the shoes of its lowest-paid employee. My mentor used to say it all the time." Ethan's brows shot up in confusion. "What are you suggesting?" Marcus turned to face them, a gleam of determination in his eyes. "I think it's time for me to go undercover, as one of the janitors." Jessica's eyes widened as she realized he was serious. "Marcus, are you sure about this?" "Absolutely. If there's an issue in our company culture, I need to see it firsthand. No titles, no filters." He felt his confidence grow as he continued. "I need to know what it's really like to work here when nobody's watching." Ethan blinked, a slight laugh escaping him. "Marcus, you can't be serious. You're going to swap your suit for a mop?" But Marcus's expression remained resolute. "Yes, Ethan, that's exactly what I'm going to do." Ethan and Jessica exchanged uncertain glances, both clearly thrown off by Marcus's determination. Jessica finally broke the silence. If you're serious about this, we'll need to think it through. This isn't just swapping roles. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. It won't be easy for you to go unnoticed. Marcus grinned, feeling more energized than he had in weeks. That's where you both come in. We need a foolproof disguise and a solid backstory. I'll work as a part-time janitor for a week, maybe 2, and get an honest look at the company from the ground up. Over the next hour, they carefully crafted Marcus's new identity. Charlie Green, a man in his late 40s who had fallen on hard times and taken a janitorial job to make ends meet. Marcus decided to adopt a slight southern accent, reminiscent of his own Georgia roots, to complete the transformation. We'll need a disguise too, Jessica noted thoughtfully. Maybe some thick glasses, a bit of scruff, and a change in hairstyle. Marcus nodded, mentally mapping out the character he would be playing. I'll let my beard grow a bit and see if a friend of mine who works in makeup can give me some aging lines. I'll wear old work clothes and scuffed-up shoes. No one will recognize me. Ethan shook his head, still amazed by Marcus's commitment. It's bold, that's for sure, but I'm in if you are. What about your family? Jessica asked, her tone more gentle. They'll probably wonder why you're dressing up like this every day for work. Marcus's gaze softened. I'll tell my wife, Janine, the truth. She'll understand. He paused, then added, we'll just say I'm at a leadership retreat if anyone asks where I am. As the meeting wrapped up, Marcus thanked them both for their support. I know this sounds unorthodox, but I need you to trust me. If there's a hidden issue in our culture, I'll find it, and we'll fix it together. Both Jessica and Ethan nodded, albeit with some apprehension. We've got your back, Ethan assured him. Just be careful out there, Marcus. It might be rougher than you think. With the plan set, the following week was a whirlwind of preparation. Marcus spent evenings with a makeup artist perfecting his disguise, experimenting with different ways to conceal his identity, and developing a believable Charlie persona. He practiced walking with a slight slouch, speaking in a lower pitch, and making sure he'd be unrecognizable even to those who knew him best. The night before he was set to begin his undercover mission, Marcus found himself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing his own reflection. Gone was the sleek, polished CEO. In his place stood Charlie, complete with a bit of graying stubble and thick-rimmed glasses. Janine, his wife, appeared in the doorway, her expression a mix of concern and amusement. Marcus, are you really going through with this? She asked, crossing her arms with a playful smirk. Marcus met her gaze in the mirror. I am. It's the only way to know what's really going on in my company. If there's a problem with the culture, I need to see it myself. Janine wrapped her arms around him, resting her chin on his shoulder. Well, you're definitely the only CEO I know who'd do this. Just promise me you'll be careful and don't forget to eat that lunch I packed for you. Marcus chuckled, turning to hug her. Yes, ma'am, I'll be the best-fed janitor in the building. That night, Marcus found sleep elusive, his mind racing with questions about what he might uncover. What would his employees reveal? How would they react if they didn't know the CEO was listening? For the first time in years, he felt the nervous excitement of stepping into the unknown. As the first rays of sunlight peeked through the window, Marcus rose, feeling a mix of trepidation and excitement. He quietly slipped into his janitor's uniform, took a moment to leave a note for Janine, and headed out, careful not to wake her. Driving to the company in his old car, rather than his usual reserved executive parking space, felt surreal. He parked in the far corner of the lot, donned his backpack, and took a deep breath. This was the beginning of a journey that would change everything. As he entered the lobby, Marcus approached the security desk, his heart pounding as he held out the temporary badge Jessica had arranged for him. Good morning, he said, trying to keep his tone casual. The guard barely looked up from his screen. Morning. ID badge, please. Yeah, here it is, Marcus replied, holding up the badge marked Charlie Green. It's my first day. The guard barely glanced at him, then nodded toward the elevator. The janitorial office is in the basement. Take the elevator on your left. With a mix of relief and anticipation, Marcus walked through the doors, his adventure as Charlie officially beginning. Marcus rode the elevator down to the basement level, feeling the reality of his new role settles in. Gone were the plush surroundings and open, bright spaces of the executive floor. Instead, he was greeted by harsh fluorescent lights, narrow hallways, and the faint smell of cleaning supplies. Following the signs, Marcus soon found himself in the janitorial office, where a no-nonsense woman named Doris was waiting for him. She wore a worn uniform and had a demeanor that seemed tougher than steel. "You must be Charlie," Doris said, looking him over with an appraising eye. "Here to join the bottom rung of the ladder?" Marcus nodded, smiling sheepishly to fit the character. "That's me, Charlie Green, at your service." Doris let out a small snort. "We'll see if you can last the week." She tossed him a set of keys and a mop handle. "Follow me. I'll show you the ropes." As Doris led him through a crash course in cleaning protocols, Marcus focused on taking in every detail. She showed him where the cleaning supplies were kept, pointed out the storage areas, and quickly walked him through safety procedures. He noticed that much of the equipment looked old and well used, and that Doris seemed to wince every time she bent down or lifted anything heavy. "Any questions?" she asked, folding her arms and studying him. Marcus hesitated, then decided to take a risk, leaning into his new role. "Yeah, just curious, what's it like working here at Titan Innovations?" Doris raised an eyebrow, a slight softening in her expression. "It's a job," she replied with a shrug. "Pays all right. But don't expect anyone up there," she pointed at the ceiling, "to notice you exist. To them, we're invisible. The best advice I can give you is to keep your head down, do your work, and stay out of everyone's way." Her words stung Marcus more than he expected. Invisible? He'd built Titan Innovations with the goal of creating a workplace where everyone felt valued. Had he unknowingly fostered an environment where some employees felt unseen? Doris handed him a mop and a cart filled with supplies. "All right, Charlie, let's see if you can keep up. Start with the lobby, then work your way up to the main offices. I'll check on you later." With that, Doris left him alone, pushing the cart toward the lobby of the very company he had spent his life building. As he walked through the lobby, he saw the familiar rush of employees hurrying in for the day. Only now, from his new vantage point, he felt a strange disconnect. Most employees walked right by him, barely acknowledging his presence, their eyes fixed on their phones or chatting with each other. He dipped the mop into the bucket, glancing up now and then to observe the environment. A young woman in a business suit approached him. "There's a spill by the elevator. Clean it up, please," she said curtly, not bothering to make eye contact before walking away. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus muttered, still reeling from the unfamiliar experience of being overlooked. It was as though he were part of the lobby fixtures, something to be walked around, rather than acknowledged. By lunchtime, Marcus had worked his way up to the cafeteria, where he spent time wiping down tables and emptying trash cans. It was here that he began to hear snippets of conversation between employees that revealed more about the culture he thought he knew so well. "Did you hear about the new project they're forming in R&D?" one employee whispered excitedly to a friend at a nearby table. "I heard they're only pulling people from the top universities." The other employees scoffed. "Figures. This place has become all about who you know, not what you can do. They're just bringing in the same type of people over and over." The words stung. Marcus had always believed Titan Innovations valued merit and hard work above all else. Had favoritism crept into the company's hiring and promotion practices? As he continued moving through the cafeteria, he caught sight of a group of his management team seated at a nearby table. He recognized them immediately, but none of them recognized him. Keeping his head down, Marcus listened as they spoke, hoping to hear how they viewed the company. "Honestly, if I get one more complaint from customer service about feeling undervalued, I'm going to scream." "Linda?" the head of operations said with clear irritation. "They're like kids, always finding something to whine about." Marcus felt a sharp pang of disappointment. Linda was someone he'd seen as an empathetic leader, someone who shared his vision for the company. Hearing her dismiss employees with such a lack of empathy was unsettling. "Tell me about it," said Mark, a marketing executive, laughing. "I had to shut down another innovative idea from one of the junior analysts. These new hires come in and think they're the next big thing just because they've got fancy degrees. Let them prove themselves first. The table erupted in laughter, and Marcus felt a flush of anger. He'd always envisioned Titan Innovations as a place that encouraged fresh ideas. Had that vision gotten lost? As he pushed his cart out of the cafeteria, Marcus realized his journey was uncovering far more than he had anticipated. He had expected to see some gaps in morale, but was starting to see cracks in the very foundation of the culture he thought he knew. That afternoon, Marcus pushed his cleaning cart to the executive floor. Walking these halls as Charlie instead of Marcus felt surreal. He could feel his heart pounding, realizing how different everything looked from this perspective. As he started cleaning the hallway, he overheard voices from inside one of the conference rooms. The door was slightly ajar, and he recognized the voices of Linda and David, his head of product development. They were in the middle of a tense conversation. "I don't care if she's been with us for 10 years, David. Sarah doesn't have the right look for this client-facing role." Linda's voice was sharp and dismissive. "We need someone who fits the brand." "Linda," David responded, clearly uneasy. "Sarah knows the product better than anyone. She's worked on this platform since day one. Her reviews are excellent." Linda scoffed. "That doesn't matter if she doesn't look the part. We need someone with charisma, someone who represents the image of Titan. What about Chris? He's newer but has the right look." "Chris barely knows the product." David's frustration was clear. "He's only been here 6 months. It's unfair to Sarah, and it's risky." Linda's voice hardened. "This isn't about fairness, David. This is about maintaining our image. End of discussion." Marcus gripped the handle of his mop, feeling a wave of frustration. The conversation wasn't just about a single employee. It represented a pattern he was beginning to see. Titan Innovations, a company he'd built to value knowledge and innovation, was now prioritizing surface-level attributes over expertise and dedication. The culture he'd envisioned had strayed far from its origins. As Linda exited the conference room, she barely glanced his way, dismissing him with a flick of her hand. "Excuse me," she said curtly, expecting him to step aside. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied, suppressing his irritation. In his haste to move the cart, he accidentally knocked over the cleaning supplies. The bottles and rags spilled onto the floor, scattering across the hallway. Linda shot him a look of disdain. "For heaven's sake, can you be more careful? Some of us are trying to get real work done here." Her voice was cold, and she made no move to help as he scrambled to pick everything up. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he murmured, keeping his head down, his heart pounding in anger. The cruelty and lack of empathy were stark and jarring. After Linda walked away, Marcus knelt on the floor, gathering his supplies, feeling a strange mix of anger and regret. He had placed people like Linda in positions of leadership, trusting them to uphold the values he held dear. Now he was witnessing firsthand how far from that vision they had drifted. Just as he was finishing, a familiar face appeared. Henry, one of the IT technicians he had met earlier that day. Henry had noticed the incident and approached with a kind smile. "Don't mind her," Henry said softly. "She's been on a rampage lately. It's not personal." Marcus managed a faint smile. "Thanks, Henry. Guess I'm just not used to being treated like that." Henry's expression turned serious. "Honestly, it's not right. People shouldn't be treated that way, no matter what their position. But that's how it's become around here. It wasn't always this way." Henry's words echoed what Marcus had begun to suspect. Somewhere along the line, Titan Innovations had lost its way. "Thanks for listening," Marcus said, grateful for Henry's kindness. "It means a lot." "Anytime, man," Henry replied. "Just remember, some of us still believe in doing things the right way." As Henry walked away, Marcus found himself replaying Linda's words and attitude over and over in his mind. The thought of how Titan had changed weighed heavily on him. He knew that if he wanted things to change, he'd need to understand the full extent of the problem. It wasn't just about Linda's poor attitude, it was about why behaviors like this were being tolerated, even encouraged. The following morning, Marcus entered Titan Innovations with renewed determination. He had seen glimpses of the company's struggles, but he knew there was still more to uncover. Today, he would spend his time with employees on the customer support floor, one of the departments he had frequently heard complaints about, but had rarely visited himself. He began by emptying trash bins and wiping down desks, observing the interactions around him. He noticed how most employees seemed tense, their faces pinched with stress. The customer support team was an essential part of Titan, handling everything from basic questions to high-level troubleshooting, but it seemed they were drowning in pressure. As he moved closer, Marcus heard a familiar voice. Angela, a senior customer support representative, was quietly coaching a new hire through a call. Angela was calm and steady, but her exhaustion was clear, dark circles under her eyes, her voice heavy with fatigue. As she finished the call, she gave the new hire an encouraging pat on the shoulder. Marcus approached, doing his best to appear casual. "Long night?" he asked softly. Angela gave him a tired smile. "You could say that. The work doesn't stop, and there's always something new to handle. But I guess that's the job, right?" He nodded, letting her continue. Angela glanced around and leaned in slightly. "Honestly, though, it's been rough. They keep asking for more without giving us the resources we need. I've been here for years, given everything, missed family events, and when I asked for a raise, they said budgets were tight." The sadness in her voice hit Marcus hard. "So they can't give you a raise?" Angela shook her head. "Not even extra hours, and I need it. My son's college tuition isn't getting any cheaper." She paused as if embarrassed for sharing too much. "Sorry, I know I shouldn't complain. It's just, sometimes it feels like no one cares." Marcus felt a wave of guilt. Angela was one of the company's longest-serving employees, yet here she was, feeling undervalued and invisible. He wanted to tell her who he really was, to promise her that change was coming. But he knew he had to wait to understand the full picture first. "Hang in there," he said gently, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in feeling this way." Angela smiled, though her eyes remained tired. "Thanks, Charlie. Not everyone sees us, but you seem to get it." As Marcus moved away, his mind raced. How many other employees felt like Angela, giving their all, yet feeling unseen? He felt a responsibility to uncover the root causes and to make changes so that people like Angela wouldn't continue feeling so undervalued. The rest of the morning was filled with more encounters that confirmed what he had been sensing. He overheard snippets of conversations about favoritism, employees feeling stuck in their roles without room for advancement, and complaints about the unreasonably high expectations placed on them without any additional support. Later, as Marcus was cleaning near the engineering department, he noticed a young woman nervously trying to speak up during a team meeting. Her name was May, and she was clearly passionate about her work. She tried to suggest an alternative approach to a new software feature they were developing, but each time she opened her mouth, someone else cut her off. After the meeting ended, May lingered behind, clearly frustrated. Gathering his courage, Marcus decided to speak with her. "Hey," he said, catching her attention. "I noticed you had some ideas. Looked like you weren't really heard in there." May sighed, crossing her arms. "It happens a lot, actually. I'm one of the only women on the team, and most of the others don't think I belong here. I've got ideas, but they'd rather hear from people who fit their mold." Marcus nodded, empathizing. "Must be frustrating." May glanced at him, a bit surprised by his understanding. "It's more than frustrating, it's exhausting. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it, you know? I came to Titan because I believed in the company's values. I thought it was a place where ideas mattered." "Don't give up, May," he said gently. "The right people will see your value. Just keep pushing." May managed a small smile. "Thanks, Charlie. You're probably the only person here who's taken the time to listen." As Marcus finished his rounds that day, he realized that Titan's problems weren't isolated to one department or a few employees. The issues he saw, favoritism, lack of support, and dismissive attitudes, were woven into the very fabric of the company's culture. And yet, beneath these challenges, he also saw resilience and hope in employees like Angela and May, who believed in what Titan could be if only they were given the opportunity to be heard. That evening, Marcus sat in his car in Titan's parking lot, his mind replaying the day's events. He had always thought he knew his company, but the reality he'd witnessed in just a few days was sobering. The weight of what he'd seen, the favoritism, the dismissive attitudes, the the disregard for dedication, hung heavily on him. He felt the sting of betrayal not just as a CEO, but as someone who had once passionately believed in his company's purpose. He started the drive home, the city lights blurring in his peripheral vision. His thoughts drifted back to Angela's worn smile, to May's frustration, to Linda's cold dismissal of both clients and her own colleagues. He couldn't shake the feeling that these problems were his own doing, that he had allowed these things to fester, unchecked. Had he become so wrapped up in profits and growth that he had lost sight of what truly mattered? As he pulled into his driveway, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, he didn't see the confident, sharp-suited CEO staring back. Instead, he saw a man grappling with the consequences of his own neglect. Titan Innovations had grown into a massive success, but at what cost? Inside, his wife Laura was waiting for him. She took one look at his weary expression and wrapped her arms around him. "Rough day?" she asked softly, guiding him to sit with her on the couch. Marcus nodded, sinking into the comfort of her embrace. "More than I ever expected. I went undercover to find answers, but all I've found so far are problems. It's worse than I thought, Laura. The company I thought I knew, it's not what it used to be." Laura stroked his hair gently, listening as he recounted the stories of Angela, May, and the other employees he had encountered. They feel invisible, unheard, and underappreciated. People who have given their best for years, and they're ready to leave because they think no one cares. Laura's eyes softened with understanding. "It sounds like Titan has grown faster than its foundation could handle. Maybe in chasing innovation, the company forgot the values it was built on." Marcus nodded, his heart heavy. "I'm realizing that now. I wanted Titan to be a place where people felt valued, where ideas mattered, no matter where they came from. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that." "Marcus, the fact that you're seeing this now is huge," Laura replied, squeezing his hand. "You can still make a difference. You went undercover to find answers, and now you have them. The next step is figuring out how to bring about real change." He looked at her, feeling a surge of determination. She was right. He had come this far. He couldn't stop now. He needed to keep going, to learn as much as he could before making any drastic decisions. This wasn't just about policies or promotions. It was about fundamentally reshaping the culture of Titan Innovations. The following morning, Marcus arrived at work early, donning his janitor's uniform once again. He felt a renewed sense of purpose as he walked through the doors. He knew now that the answers wouldn't be easy, and that fixing Titan's issues would take time, but he was ready to dig even deeper. Today, he planned to observe the tech team, a group whose creativity and dedication had been crucial to Titan's success. They were often overworked and faced unrealistic deadlines, but Marcus hoped to understand more about how they felt about their roles and responsibilities. As he pushed his cleaning cart onto the tech floor, he overheard two developers discussing a recent project. "I'm telling you, Chris, I can't keep up with these deadlines," one of them said, his voice tinged with frustration. "We're churning out code like machines, but no one seems to care about the quality anymore." "Chris," the other developer sighed, "tell me about it. Remember when we used to have time to innovate? Now it's just faster, faster, faster. No one cares if the product has issues later on, as long as it's out now." Marcus continued his work quietly, listening to their conversation. The tech team's complaints echoed what he had already seen across the company. Employees were being pushed to their limits with little regard for their well-being or creativity. In the rush for constant growth and profitability, Titan had lost sight of the people who had made that success possible. By the end of the day, Marcus felt a renewed commitment to his mission. He realized that Titan's culture was fractured, and that it would take a monumental effort to rebuild the sense of community and purpose it had once held. But as he left the tech floor, his resolve strengthened. He had found his calling again, not just as the CEO of a successful company, but as the leader of a company with a purpose that went beyond profits. The next morning, Marcus prepared himself for an important day, one he knew would likely test his patience and resolve. Today, he would observe the department heads and middle managers more closely. He needed to understand the disconnect between the upper management's priorities and the ground-level experiences of the employees, hoping it would shed light on the culture shift he had witnessed. Arriving in the executive wing, Marcus began by cleaning conference rooms and offices, blending into the background as meetings got underway. Within minutes, he overheard a conversation that both intrigued and frustrated him. "I get what you're saying, but that's not our problem," one of the managers said dismissively to her team lead, Linda, as they discussed quarterly targets. "Our main goal is meeting these numbers. The board doesn't care how it's done, so why should we?" Linda hesitated, glancing at the door before responding. "But our teams are struggling. We've got people on the edge of burnout, and turnover has spiked in the last few months. If we don't support them, we're going to lose even more talent." The manager waved her hand dismissively. "That's an HR issue. They're just going to have to tough it out. High performance comes with high demands." Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had expected some level of pressure from management to meet deadlines, but this callous attitude toward employees' well-being was something he hadn't prepared for. This wasn't leadership, it was transactional, viewing people as resources to be used up and replaced. Later that afternoon, Marcus encountered Linda again in the break room. She was getting a coffee, her expression tense. Taking a chance, he approached her, carefully keeping his Charlie persona. "Long day?" he asked gently, setting his cleaning supplies aside. Linda glanced at him, and for a moment she looked like she was going to brush him off. But then she sighed. "You could say that. Just tired of all the constant pressure to deliver? It's a lot." Marcus nodded, deciding to push a bit further. "Seems like a lot of people feel that way, huh? The folks at the bottom, the teams at the top. Everyone's stretched thin." She gave a tired smile. "Tell me about it. I try to do right by my team, but it's tough when there's so much pressure from higher up. They only see the numbers, never the people behind them." Marcus watched her closely, realizing that despite her authority, Linda might also be a casualty of the toxic culture she was helping to enforce. "Maybe they just need someone to remind them," he offered carefully. "Remind them that the company's strongest when everyone feels valued, not when everyone feels disposable." Linda nodded, her face softening slightly. "Maybe, but I'm not sure anyone up there really listens anymore. They just want results." As Marcus left the break room, he knew that Linda's frustration was valid, but saw clearly that Titan's management hierarchy was contributing heavily to the problem. If managers like Linda felt trapped by expectations from the top, that pressure was inevitably going to filter down to every level of the company. The divide between leadership and employees was deeply ingrained, and it was time to tear down those walls. He headed to the executive floor, deciding it was time to take a bigger risk. He entered the conference room where the senior managers were about to begin their weekly check-in. Marcus knew he couldn't participate directly, but he could observe how these leaders set the tone and conveyed their expectations. As the meeting began, one of the senior executives, a man named Philip, spoke first. "All right, everyone, let's get this moving. We've had a dip in productivity in Q3, and it's unacceptable. We need solutions, not excuses." Another manager, Jessica, raised her hand. "Philip, I think we might be stretching our teams a bit too thin. They're hitting burnout rates that are unsustainable, and it's affecting productivity and morale. Maybe we should reconsider some of our deadlines." Philip shot her a sharp look. "Maybe they just need to work harder, Jessica. We're all under pressure, and we're still here, aren't we? This is a business, not a support group." Marcus's jaw clenched as he listened, feeling a rush of anger. Here were executives and department heads dismissing valid concerns that affected the well-being of their teams. This wasn't how he had envisioned his company being run. When had Titan Innovations become so driven by quotas that they had lost sight of the people who had built the company up? He left the meeting, fighting the urge to walk in there and reveal his true identity. This wasn't just a management problem. This was an erosion of values. The same people who were supposed to lead with empathy and vision had become obsessed with meeting targets and ignoring the cost to employees' mental and physical health. Standing in the empty corridor outside the conference room, Marcus made a vow to himself. He would bring change, no matter how hard it was or how many people resisted it. He would return Titan Innovations to a place where employees were seen as more than a means to an end. Marcus spent the following days silently observing, each new encounter confirming the deep-seated issues Titan faced. But despite the negative discoveries, a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of one of Titan's top engineers, a soft-spoken man named David Ortega. Known for his expertise in software development, David had an excellent reputation and was admired by his peers, yet he stayed grounded and was often the first to help other team members when needed. On Marcus's final day undercover, he found himself cleaning a conference room as David was packing up after a long meeting. Sensing an opportunity, Marcus struck up a conversation. "Looks like it was a long one," he remarked, spraying down the table. David chuckled. "Aren't they always? But today's was more about fixing what's broken, instead of just pushing more projects through." Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Fixing things, huh? That's not the usual focus, is it?" David shook his head, a shadow crossing his face. "Not lately, but I think some people are finally starting to see the cracks. You know, people are leaving and morale is low. It's hard to ignore now." Marcus hesitated, then asked, "Ever think things could change? Like, for real?" David looked around the empty room and sighed. "Honestly, I'd like to believe so. It's hard to keep showing up every day, pouring your soul into the work, only to see people burn out and leave. But I guess I hold out hope that one day someone in charge might actually listen." Marcus nodded slowly, feeling both inspired and saddened. He was someone in charge, yet until recently he had been out of touch with the struggles and disillusionment of his employees. David's hope mirrored his own, a hope that leadership would see the value in its people rather than just focusing on numbers. "Thanks for talking," Marcus said sincerely. "Not everyone seems to care as much as you do." David gave a modest smile. "It's no big deal. I just think that if we're going to create something worth building, it has to be something people believe in. Otherwise, what's the point?" Marcus watched as David left, feeling the truth of his words resonate deeply. As the CEO, he realized he needed to embody this vision more than anyone else. But David's outlook had given Marcus a small sense of reassurance. He wasn't alone in wanting a better Titan. The next morning, Marcus finally let the entire executive team in on his undercover experience, carefully revealing his findings and the urgent need for change. Though shocked, a few of them quickly saw the wisdom in his approach, and an unexpected ally stepped forward, Jessica, head of HR, who had also grown increasingly frustrated with the toxic culture. "We need to start with how we treat people. From the ground up," Jessica said passionately during the meeting. "People like David and Linda are trying their best, but we need to give them a better environment to thrive in." Marcus nodded, feeling grateful for her support. "Exactly. I want you to lead an initiative to overhaul the entire employee experience. From recruitment to promotion, every policy needs to reflect our core values. And I want you to work closely with all department heads. No more isolated management. We're going to be in this together." As the days turned into weeks, Marcus and Jessica held a series of in-depth discussions with employees, managers, and team leads, gathering honest feedback and gaining insights into the unfiltered realities of the company's work culture. They implemented anonymous reporting systems, introduced more flexibility in workload distribution, and restructured the promotion process to ensure that talent and hard work were valued above superficial traits. To his surprise, even Linda joined in, recognizing how much she had contributed to the culture's decline. "I'm ready to make amends," she confessed to Marcus one afternoon. "I lost my way in chasing results, but I don't want to be remembered as someone who forgot what mattered." Marcus appreciated her honesty and encouraged her to be part of the solution. Together, they worked on a training program aimed at fostering empathy and responsibility in leadership, setting a new tone from the top. Bookmark Go Back. With each passing week, Titan Innovations began to feel like a company reborn. Marcus and Jessica led the charge, introducing changes that encouraged transparency, respect, and personal growth. They started with smaller initiatives, things that would demonstrate the shift in leadership's priorities. The first step was creating an open-door policy for all levels of employees, not just managers. Marcus encouraged team members to voice their opinions directly to leadership, inviting them to weekly coffee chats where they could share their ideas without fear of judgment. David, the engineer who had unknowingly inspired Marcus to press forward, became an advocate for these sessions, bringing forth ideas that could strengthen team collaboration and help ensure no voice went unheard. The impact was immediate. For the first time, employees felt empowered to shape the future of Titan, and even those who had considered leaving began to feel a renewed sense of purpose. The culture of fear and favoritism was being steadily dismantled, replaced by one where integrity and respect held sway. One afternoon, Marcus invited his executive team to a workshop led by Jessica and Linda. It was a session on empathetic leadership, and the entire management team was expected to participate. They spent the afternoon sharing personal experiences and reflections, exploring how small choices in tone and attitude could impact the work environment. Linda spoke openly about her mistakes, admitting the toll her single-minded focus on results had taken on her team and the trust she had lost. Sometimes, when you're so driven by outcomes, you lose sight of the people making those outcomes possible, Linda admitted, her voice sincere. I didn't realize the damage I was causing until I saw it through someone else's eyes. The session left a lasting impression on everyone. Managers who had once seen themselves as untouchable were now grappling with how their choices had affected others. By the end of the workshop, there was a shared commitment to doing better, to creating a Titan Innovations that valued people just as much as performance. As employees began to feel the shift, they responded in kind. During one of his routine check-ins, Marcus noticed Angela from accounting, the diligent worker who had nearly lost her home, smiling as she worked, her face more relaxed than he'd ever seen. When he pulled her aside to ask how she was doing, her response was nothing short of heartwarming. "It's like night and day," Angela said, her eyes bright with gratitude. "I used to feel like I was just a number, pushing papers in the background. Now I'm part of something bigger, something meaningful. Thank you, Marcus, for letting us see a different side of you and for giving us a chance to make things right." For Marcus, it was proof that the changes were working, that his decision to go undercover and dig deeper into his own company had been the right one. He realized that creating a positive culture wasn't just about policies. It was about the daily commitment to listening, learning, and being willing to change. In the weeks that followed, Titan saw a wave of new energy. Employees were more engaged, eager to contribute, and felt more loyal to the company. Productivity rose naturally as a result, and the divide between leadership and the rest of the workforce was steadily closing. Titan was no longer a place where fear drove performance. It was a place where people thrived. But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. Transforming a culture takes time, patience, and resilience. He worked with his team to craft a long-term strategy that would build on their early successes, ensuring that Titan's values remained strong and that every employee had a clear path for growth and success. By the end of the quarter, Titan Innovations had achieved more than just financial success. It had become a place where every employee, from the janitor to the executive, could feel proud to belong. A few months after the transformation efforts began, Marcus decided it was time to bring the entire team together for a celebration, a gesture that would acknowledge everyone's hard work, dedication, and the positive changes that had taken place within Titan Innovations. He organized an event at Titan's headquarters, complete with food trucks, a live band, and a main stage for speeches and awards. Employees arrived with their families, filling the campus with laughter, chatter, and a sense of pride that hadn't been there before. When it was time for Marcus to address the crowd, he felt a surge of gratitude. He stepped onto the stage, scanning the audience for familiar faces: Angela, David, Linda, Jessica, and countless others who had contributed to Titan's renewal. Each of them had played a crucial role in the company's journey, and seeing them all there brought a warmth that no award or accolade could replace. "Today is more than a celebration of Titan's success," Marcus began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "It's a celebration of every single person here, of your resilience, your courage, and your dedication to building a workplace that reflects the best of who we are. Each of you is part of what makes Titan special, and each of you has shown me that together we can accomplish incredible things." A round of applause erupted, and Marcus took a moment to let it sink in. He continued, "As a company, we've come a long way in a short time, but this is only the beginning. We'll keep working to ensure Titan remains a place where every person's voice is heard, where every person is valued, and where every person can grow." The crowd erupted into cheers, and for Marcus, it was a turning point. This moment represented a collective commitment to a new way forward, a Titan Innovations where employees felt empowered and valued, where integrity and inclusion were more than just words on a mission statement. Later in the day, Marcus met privately with some of the employees he had interacted with during his undercover experience, including David, Angela, and Linda. He thanked them personally for their honesty, their bravery, and their willingness to share their experiences. Angela, visibly moved, told him that for the first time in years, she looked forward to coming to work every day, knowing she was part of a company that cared. David, the engineer who had offered advice even when he didn't know Marcus's true identity, expressed his gratitude as well. It's amazing to see a CEO who doesn't just talk about values, but actually lives them. I think we all feel more invested in Titan now because we can see that our contributions matter. For Linda, this journey had been transformative. Once a leader who had valued results over relationships, she now focused on building her team's strengths, creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and support. "I lost sight of what really mattered," she admitted, "but this experience has taught me more than any leadership book ever could. I'm grateful to have a chance to make things right." Marcus's heart swelled with pride and relief. The journey had been challenging, but it had yielded a more connected, empathetic, and united Titan than he had ever imagined. He knew the changes wouldn't end here. They would evolve, grow, and deepen as Titan's culture continued to mature. As the day wound down, Marcus reflected on the journey that had led them here. By going undercover, he had learned more than he could have from 1,000 reports or meetings. He had seen the true strength of his employees and witnessed firsthand the courage it took to speak out, to lead with empathy, and to create positive change. The experience had changed him too. He now understood that leadership wasn't just about steering the company toward financial success, but creating an environment where everyone could thrive. It was about inspiring others, not just directing them. He had transformed as much as Titan had, and he felt a deep gratitude for the second chance he had been given to lead his company with renewed purpose. As the stars began to dot the sky, Marcus watched as employees gathered in small groups, sharing laughs and stories. The event had been a success, but more importantly, it marked a new chapter for Titan, a company that was now not only focused on innovation, but committed to creating a community that valued each person as a critical part of its success. Standing beside Jessica, Marcus felt a wave of optimism for the road ahead. Titan had found its footing, and with the strength of its people, it would continue to grow, becoming a shining example of what a company could be when it put its employees at the heart of its mission. Marcus's journey from a CEO to Charlie the Janitor is a reminder that true leadership is rooted in empathy, humility, and the courage to act. His time undercover taught him that leading isn't about power or status, but about genuinely connecting with and valuing the people who make a company thrive. By experiencing his employees' daily realities, Marcus uncovered challenges and stories that transformed his understanding of his company's culture. He saw firsthand that a strong, healthy workplace doesn't come from policies alone, but from an environment built on respect and inclusion, where every voice matters. This new perspective led him to make fundamental changes at Titan Innovations, not just structural changes, but a renewed commitment to foster a workplace where people feel empowered to contribute and grow. In doing so, Marcus set a new standard, showing that real leaders inspire others not just through words, but by living out the values they want to see in their company. His story leaves us with a powerful question. What might be possible if every workplace invested in truly understanding and uplifting the people at its heart? If you found this story moving, let us know in the comments. If you thought it was a good story, comment 1. If it deeply resonated with you, comment too. And don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned for more stories that celebrate the strength of empathy, integrity, and change. Let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts or personal stories below. Thank you for watching, and together, let's imagine a brighter future for every workplace.